just what I'm often solving is nation, and just recognizing that the venue that we're in, the place we live, the places we work, all wouldn't be possible without the displacement of the first peoples before that. And that's what I can bring for the acknowledgement tonight, but I know that's a lot of deeper work as we carry forward in the process of examining what our identity looks like on land where we're settlers, if you are a settler, like myself. And welcome to Keeping It Human, Victoria, everyone. Thank you so much. So excited we have a sellout crowd tonight. My name is Marco Cherubia. Marco, I'm the MC. The initials are also MC. So it works out. I'll be your host for the evening. And Keeping It Human, what we're doing tonight is really, it's a different iteration of what the organization that I run, the Existence Project, does around town. And the essence of what that is we use storytelling to help connect different communities together. So we work with connecting marginalized communities to those with privilege and access to political power. That's a core thing of what we do. We also use storytelling as a medium to help people work through shame and isolation and build dignity and connection to community. And so the brunt of our work takes place in downtown service providers, different shelters, recovery homes, as well as schools, and we're also starting to work with businesses and organizations now. So thank you for taking part in the first city-wide event. It's awesome. And this is a much more interactive event than your typical come and listen to a story. So out of respect for the topic being discussed tonight and the storyteller and everyone in the room, I have a few community agreements that I'm just going to run through with everyone so we can all make sure we're on the same page and make this a really safe, inclusive space for everyone. So I can see most of you pretty well, so I'm going to say some stuff, and if you're down, then just give me a thumbs up if that sounds good. So the first community agreement I have is the respectful use of language, so no hate speech, no bullying, no judgment. Pretty basic. Sound good? Okay. Number 2, consent on touch speaks for itself. If you want to touch someone or give someone a hug, you need to ask first. Sound good? Awesome. Number 3, take care of yourself. If you need space, take it. So there's going to be some stuff talked about here that might be a bit triggering for some people. So if you feel like you need emotional support throughout the night, there's at the outdoors, there's also the bathrooms, there's also people walking around with volunteer on their shirt, and they'll be happy to help you, support you in whatever way you need it. So be your own best friend. Sound good? Woo! All right. Okay, next one is time and quieter voices. So just realizing that there is a big group process happening here, and you're going to be talking as a group, so be aware of how much you are talking and how much people beside you aren't talking. Sound good? And the last one is just being open to the process. So this is a process we've done in different settings, but this is the first one we've ran here. I know you're all here for a reason, and I just want to be open to taking part in it, and also, sharing what you've learned here and bringing that back to the wider community. Does that sound good to everyone? Wicked. Sweet. So, quick run through of what to expect for the evening before we get into the meat of it. Right now, we are doing the introductory portion. After this, we're going to be doing a story by the man Kym Hines over here, who we'll get to in a second. We're going to follow that with a Q&A, so there's going to be an opportunity to ask questions both anonymously and live. There's going to be a time for group dialogue, so you at your tables are going to be able to discuss stuff. After that, there's going to be a creative exercise we're going to introduce. Then we're going to share as a group. Then there's going to be a little bit of a conclusion. We're going to test out this crazy technology thing that hopefully doesn't go bonkers. To be continued. And then, we'll close the night, and in the back you're going to find an art gallery and a photography gallery that's a summation of art and photography from the different workshops we've had. Sound good? All right. So, a bit about the project and where the project started. So, again, my name is Marco Cherubia. I was born in Ottawa, Ontario. That's unceded territory of the Algonquin people. I was born to a middle-class family. My dad was a first-generation immigrant from former Yugoslavia who was a radiologist. My mother was an intermittent social worker and a stay-at-home mom from Belleville, Ontario. I had a little brother, and all things considered, I had a lot of my needs met growing up, and I grew up quite privileged, actually. I grew up in a nice neighborhood of town. I was very loved and supported. And for me, part of my struggle started to happen in school. So anyone who knows me knows I'm prone to crying. A probably seen me cry before if you know me. And so I'm a sensitive guy, and that didn't fit well in the school system. So pretty much from the first time I went into high school, or grade school, sorry, I started getting bullied, and that would perpetuate over years and years. And it was manageable for me from grade 1 to grade 8, but by the time I got to grade 9, it became really difficult, and the reason for that was there was an event, and so one day I was out with people that I called my friends at night, and by mistake I had spit on someone's shoe who was there, and after that I got beat up for the first time, and so I was 13 years old and I just got beaten up, and I went back to my house and talked to my mom about it, and she was really concerned. She was a caring mother, and so her response was to try to get in touch with some of the kids' moms who had been involved that night. And after she did that, the next day I went to school, and pretty much the entire school was calling me narco, faggot, loser, and I probably got called those things more than 1,500 times throughout my 4-year span, if I had to guess. And now I'm a lot luckier. My friends call me Marcoco Puff. And you know, that was difficult to deal with, but what made it really difficult is at that same time, about a couple of weeks later, my godmother passed away very unexpectedly from a heart attack, and it kind of sent our whole family spiraling away into a bit of a grief cycle. And my mom had to pick up the slack, help the 2 kids that were left behind, and my dad was a full-time worker who was supporting a family back home in Croatia at the time as well, in the wake of the war. And so really what it left for me was just having to deal with all that stuff in isolation. And when you deal with stuff in isolation without connection to others, and there's all these societal forces telling you that there's something wrong with you, you start to believe that's true. And that happened for me. So it was like, you know, just a sense of self that was rooted in shame. It wasn't rooted in belonging. It wasn't rooted in a strong identity. And that perpetuated in various degrees of my life for years, for 2 years, for 3 years, for 4 years, for 6 years, for 7 years, for 10 years, for 12 years. And I stand here today, and I think, you know, because of this project, I was able to get myself to a place where I could say what was done to me was wrong, and there were societal things at play that should never have been that way for people like me. And you know, I'm very grateful for this project to have brought me that. I didn't expect it to be a healing journey, but that's what it was. It was watching people transform the adversity that they'd experienced in their life and channel that into meaning in a way of helping themselves, but also helping others. And that's the beauty of storytelling, I think, when we embrace our own story. It's like, there's our own healing journey that we go through, but then we're also able to help others. And this past week, has anyone here been to Oakland's farmers market? Yeah, so I was like 6 macaroons deep a few weeks ago, and there was a choir playing, and I was admiring this choir. Is anyone singing it? Yeah, there we go. So it's like an open. It's like an open choir. I don't say that like anyone can sing in it, but it's a low barrier choir, I would say. And I was, I mean that in the best way. I'm gonna get to it. And I was just looking at it and just really appreciating it, like the beauty of it. This eclectic group of people there gathered to, you know, sing a song, feel connection, be part of something, create something. And I was thinking about the project, and I was just like, you know, when we hold space for people to share their story in a way that is empowering, and when we tell our story in a way that's empowering and respectful to others, we are voices in that choir expressing our humanity. And there's overlaps in our humanity. And so when we sing together, that song that we sing, that's what I want Victoria to be. I want it to be a community that's founded on connection and dignity and belonging for everyone. And so that's the goal of the project, and we're trying that across different spheres. And this is the first one tonight of a public event of anything like this, so really appreciate all of you. We're about to get to the storytelling portion, so I'm just going to ask folks if they have their phones, if they would just put them on silent, if that's a thing. And yeah, you're going to see little pieces of paper on your desk as well, and so those are meant for anonymous questions. So if you have a question that you want to ask that you don't want to say publicly, feel free to write it down on there, and we'll come collect it after the story's done. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our storyteller for the evening. He is an advocate for people living in poverty. He's been my primary advisor of someone with lived experience since I started this project. He runs numerous peer-led coalitions around town that help to collectivize the voice of people that are underrepresented, his peers as well, into collective action that can be heard. He just was a co-organizer of the Poor Persons March, which was a 100-mile march for people with lived experience to raise awareness and ask for better housing conditions for people in poverty. And lastly, he runs a video and a blog channel called Thaw Victoria. It's YouTube and blog, that documents police action around the homeless. So give a warm welcome to a beautiful soul, my friend Kym Hines.
Everybody hear me okay? Sweet. Oh, I can see when I put my rim down. But that's an honoring. Thank you, Marco. My name is Kimberly Anita Teresa Hines, and I'm a grateful visitor here in the Wangin territory, Sonic territory. I was born in the north end of Winnipeg, in the Treaty 1 territory of the Anishinaabe, and bear with me, Anenu, Oji Cree, Sine, Dakota, and the birthplace of the Métis Nation. And it's taken me years to gather that information about my birthplace. I was designated female at birth. I am a transgender person, and I go by he or they, although a lot of folks still call me she, and that's okay. My family, my mom is a settler Acadian whose our ancestors came to the shores of the Micmac territory in 1632 from La Rochelle, France. We were displaced as working people. And we were on a ship with over 300 other people with diverse working skills. Whether my family knew it or not, we brought the French colonial system to the Micmac territory. My dad, well, that's a bit complicated. My mom passed away at 67 from a life of poverty. She was either fleeing from or being rescued by men. My dad was a rescuer and an affair. So the big secret, until December 1979, my mom broke down in tears and said I had a different father, but she couldn't tell me who it was. And then years later, I would learn that Uncle Tommy Gladue died in December of 1979 and connected the dots. Displacement has been a theme in both our sides, our ancestors' lives and mine. And I want to talk about my mom. In 1958, at the age of 17, my mom met this blue-eyed James Dean character named Bob Hines. They got pregnant, they had a shotgun wedding, and my mom got temporarily disconnected from her Roman Catholic family. Bob was Irish, and he came from generational abuse, generational violence, and generational alcoholism, and we didn't know that. Mom didn't know that at the time. I would receive my first head injury when my mom was 8 months pregnant with me, and Bob hit her. There was no support for my mom, and I don't think there was any support for Bob. I think that they fell in love very young, and as soon as trouble came, we fell to what we learned and what we knew. And Bob became a very violent person. I remember very young, the earliest memories I have are of Buddy Holly music, the Beatles music, music always on at home, and I think that's probably what saved me during those first couple of early years. Johnny Cash as well. I remember when I was 2, John F. Kennedy was assassinated, and I remember just seeing that footage over and over and hearing people talking about that all my life. When I was 5, so Mom tried to leave an abusive man. It was very difficult back in 1958 and 59. So she ended up going to bars when Bob went and did his truck driving and went away. And she connected with a Métis named Leonard LaValle, who was known to be someone who respected women and did not respect men who hurt women. So when Leonard was around, we were pretty safe. Unfortunately, my brother and I were sent away for a year during that time, and I'm not sure about the reasons for that, and that's a whole other story, but it was not a good year. And we went and stayed with Bob's oldest sister, Rose, out in Thompson, Manitoba, way north. And Mom would never speak about it, and I would find out years later. When I was 7, I remember coming back to Winnipeg, and Martin Luther King was assassinated. And that took up a lot of our time and energy. Later, 2 months later, Robert Kennedy was assassinated. I remember there being so much violence on TV being talked about around these incidents, and I was experiencing a lot of violence in my own home. So I started making these links without really thinking about it too much. Then a hard thing happened with us. My mom broke up with Leonard because he was a womanizer. He helped a lot of people, but a lot of women were on him, and she would not be with a man who did that. So not really a womanizer, he just fooled around, and there's a difference. And he regretted that decision, I believe. And for us, it was suddenly we weren't so safe at home again. So at that time, I remember seeing The Littlest Hobo. I don't know if anybody remembers that story. So I went and got the broomstick and got a pillowcase, put a big can of peanut butter in it, big huge box of soda crackers, and asked my brother if he wanted to run away with me, and he said yeah. I remember that time too, seeing the scars on the back of the woman who lived downstairs. She was a neighbor, and she survived Nazi-occupied territory. And I still remember to this day which territory she came from, but she fled Nazi-occupied territory by traveling under barbed wire that was 1 foot from the ground. And she brought her 2 kids with her, and it was miles of this barbed wire, and she made it to Winnipeg. And I'll never forget that story. I thought to myself, if she can get through that, I can run away from home. So that night, I woke up my brother at 2 in the morning, and of course he wouldn't wake up. I was smart enough not to go out by myself. And I would spend that night, like a lot of other nights, staring out the window, looking at people walking by, a lot of them war survivors, a lot of people in a lot of grief and pain, talking to themselves, arguing with themselves. And when I was 9, my mom somehow, I don't know how she did it, because she was a person who was now on welfare, who left Leonard, and she decided to leave the North End, and we went to Parview, Manitoba, probably to be closer to some of the cousins who my mom felt safer to be around. When I was 11, my brother was 11 and I was 10, so it's a year later, my mom said, we're gonna go to Winnipeg, you and Daryl are gonna go to Winnipeg, visit Dad, because Daryl really wanted to see his dad. He always missed his dad. And I think it's really hard for boys who don't have their dads around. And I to stay focused. We went to Winnipeg, and his partner at the time organized a potluck, which was awesome. Unfortunately, Bob got drunk pretty quickly, and he went up to the youngest, toughest looking guy in the crowd and gave him a bleeding nose. He then left. We stayed away from him. He left, went to the bar. I don't remember much of the night except for sleeping on the floor in the living room, when you're visiting a poor family. And Bob coming home drunk in the middle of the night with a woman from the bar. And she saw the 2 kids on the floor and decided to leave. And I got my brother and I out of there because violence started in the home. And we would go outside, and I was the one that got him up. We were frozen on the floor. And we go outside, and we go in between a couple of buildings, and there's probably about 8 other youths. And we just all hung out. We felt safe. We just watched each other's back. I don't know what we did. I don't think we did anything. We just waited until things quieted in our homes. So we stayed 4 years. We moved to Parview, Manitoba. I went back. We made it back, my brother and I, but that was the kind of stuff that we always had to deal with. And even though I was a year younger, I was always the one that got us moving away from the violence. There was good memories in Parview too. Do you remember the jukeboxes with those little 35s? So when we first moved there, my mom got a place above a restaurant, and for us that was cool. We suddenly had all this space. The jukebox downstairs, whenever they got new ones, I got the 35s. I'd be there. I'd see the truck coming, and I'd be there, and I'd grab them, and we'd play them, for hours. Music. I remember art. My mom, I think she had a good year the first year. We did art a lot. We sang a lot together. My mom got a sculpture with clay. She got clay from the banks of the river, Winnipeg River there. Check out Parview, Manitoba. It's a beautiful area. My friends were other marginalized people, and I never thought about this until I was telling this story. Freddie, who was a Mexican indigenous, really tough and picked on. Albert, this little white guy with really thick glasses, black rimmed glasses, and he always got picked on. Addie, who was a girl my age, like me, I didn't know then, I was very tomboy. Addie was very tomboy. And we were both survivors of child sexual abuse, and we bonded over that. I would find out years later that Addie and Albert killed themselves young, and because of the struggle that they went through around social stigma. And I never heard about how Fred did. I hope he did well, and I would love to be able to see that guy again. We played pinball a lot in the restaurant, and we're the kids who didn't get into too much trouble. And my mom liked it because it was close to home, and a lot of the kids liked mom because whenever they needed to talk about something, mom was that mom that everybody could talk to. So that was cool about my mom. Then my mom dated a fella. He was abusive, and we ended up having to flee Parby, Manitoba. And I'll just cut to it. She said, hey, we're going on vacation to Alberta. We were blown away. We go on vacation. Never. And we were excited. And I had failed grade 6 the year before. It was a tough time. And all of a sudden, we're going on vacation. And I passed grade 6 going into grade 7. And now we can go on vacation. It's awesome. We got to Calgary. My brother and I raided a garden because my mom didn't have any food one time. And we heard about raiding gardens. We went and raided a garden. Didn't do very well. Cops found their way back to the trailer, and mom backed us up. We ran to the back, and she answered the door, and she knew nothing about any kids' food. And we got a good, like this, and then she's like, what food did you eat? So we were careful after that. We get to Calgary there a month, things are good, and then she tells us we're moving there. And it was devastating for all of us for different reasons. We would forgive her because you'd learn about why, and you forgive your mom. But it was just a bit of a transition. And I think it was a tough one for my mom. She found a farm 7 miles outside of Bicycle, Alberta. We didn't have a car, and we were in the prairie. And it was awesome on the one hand because we were messed up. I was messed up. We all were messed up. And my mom went in a 2-year depression. So thank God for big open skies and investigating life around you. Because that's probably what kept my sanity going. My brother lasted about a year, and then he stole a vehicle from a neighbor, made it to Regina, got sent back, and then he took off again after that, and I wouldn't see him again until after I would run away. And a year later, I would as well. And I think about it now, we were both 15, and school was ugly, especially in Bicycle, Alberta. They didn't seem to care at all. It was out of control. I'll just leave it at that. But a small town farm, they didn't care what grades you got. Just get you out of there. And it was disgusting. I'll leave it at that. I had a great librarian, though, who really helped us. Again, music. A great librarian had reels in the library for us to be able to go in there when we were upset. Marita, the babysitter for the North End, moved to Bicycle after my brother took off. My mom decided we got to move into Bicycle. We got a trailer. And it was cool that this old babysitter from Winnipeg was there. And I would learn years later she was fleeing abuse. So they were trying to support each other, my mom and her, I couldn't handle it though. School was just insane for me to deal with these teachers and what was going on around me. So I get a job working in retail at a hobby store, and I thought I was going to lose my mind. It was the turning point. That was it. I can't even work this job. It was insanely boring. So instead of losing my mind, I was very isolated. I didn't talk to very many people. I didn't have buddies I hung out with a lot. And I was very post-traumatic stress disorder even by then. Where was I here? Moved to Bicycle. I got the job. Instead of going crazy, I decided I'm going to use my mind to plan the escape. And I ran away to Winnipeg. It didn't go so well. I didn't want to be anywhere. I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to connect with people. And Marita's brother took care of me and sent me back home. And then I would go to a farm for a year, another attempt at helping. I had to take care of a horse, and I had to help take care of chickens. And that, I think, saved my life too, being in nature and connecting with that animal. I remember that a year later when my mom moved back to Calgary and I decided to try again with family. I missed my mom, I missed my family. It was horrible to not be with your family and to not be able to be with your family. So when she moved to Calgary and I had this year, I felt we got to try again. So she agreed and I moved back. Bottom line is I got scooped up by the fundamentalist Christians. And it took only a couple of months. And it was really awkward at home because there was a lot of issues that we couldn't even talk about or deal with. So I got scooped up and they talked about family and love. And I was like, that's what we need. We need love in our family. We need some peace. You know, we need some of this. So I got right into it. Within 9 months, they had me, I was going to be the next Catherine Kuhlman. I had the gifts of discernment, dreams, and visions. I was being asked to go to prayer meetings. And next thing you know, they invite Brian Rudd to our church. And he invites LGBTQ people to come and hear him out about the message of God. And I was like, wow, that sounds so cool. I did not know I was a dyke, if you can imagine. And I thought, that sounds so cool. And he came and he spewed hate from the very beginning. The moment he opened his mouth, he was like spewing hate and Sodom and Gomorrah, they're gonna go to hell. And suddenly there was like this murmur in the crowd and everybody was looking up and I turned around and I was in the front row already in tears, like disgusted by what this man was saying. And these women dropped, I saw my first banner drop. It was my first banner drop. Those dykes came to the church and that was like 79, right? And they dropped a banner that said something to the effect of, you know, God doesn't make any mistakes, lesbian and proud. And there was such a kerfuffle. But basically, I would hit this pretty crazy emotional bottom. On the one hand, it planted a seed of resistance, and I'll never forget that moment. On the other hand, I was like cut. I was broken. I could not believe it. Next thing you know, these people are all over me trying to get rid of the demons in me. They decided I was queer before I even knew it. And before I could be an evangelist, I had to get rid of these demons. I had to put down skirts. I had to get married. So that didn't go over very well. And they tried getting rid of all these evil spirits over 20 times. Can you imagine, you're like 16, 15 at the time? So this went on for too long, and I finally went to the liquor store and got myself a Mickey of rum, drank it, and went to the Christmas Eve thing at the Calgary Christian Center. And that was my last night there. I would go home after that, and this is what's beautiful about my brother and I, how our connection, our lives keep intersecting when we meet each other. He shows up at my door just when I'm seeing demons coming out the wall. I mean, when people tell you enough that there's demons everywhere and you're full of them, you might start seeing them, and I did. I was drunk and I was seeing them. I was like, what? And the next day, my brother knocked on the door. He said, hey, you want to go? And yeah, we went. And we were homeless for a year. And it was just mad drugs, wherever you can get it, party wherever you can. It didn't matter to me at the time because I was told I was going to hell. So I was going to get a first-class ticket. And I wasn't going to let their whatever made me kill myself. Even though I would get into the suicidal thing, I'd be like, no. Like, no, I'm going to get a first-class ticket to hell. And that's, I mean, I had that kind of attitude, but I believed I actually was going. So it's kind of a bit of a mind mess up there. We hung for a year, and then we went off on our own ways. And at that point, actually less than a year, because I'm still about 16, when I met Denny Sue, who was kind of the first person I ever had a crush on. When I realized, oh, that's what this means, being a lesbian, because I was this butchy little thing. And she was 15, and she had already been a sex trade worker for 8 years, because her father sold her to men. And I just, it changed my life. But what was also interesting about Danny and I is I was comfortable with Danny, like I was with my mom. I didn't have to talk with my mom, we could just hang out. A lot of people know my PTSD, right? But with Denny, I could also be like that with my mom. So anyways, we decided we're going to hitchhike to San Francisco. We got as far as Seattle, and her uncle turned her back and flew her back to Calgary. And it was a devastating moment for me. I was really upset. And like Marco, I cried easily, like my Uncle Johnny. But I didn't think I could handle that. So I went back to the hostel, and I would go into this room. There's 8 of us piled into this emergency hostel at Seattle off of Pike Street. And I started punching myself in the head. And I'd never done that before. And these 2 women in the bed beside me were a dyke couple. And they intervened. And it probably saved my life because, everybody in there was struggling. But these 2 were struggling as queer and poor. They were otherwise pretty together. And they would bring me to the Silver Slipper Cafe, which older dykes would argue the rest of my life about whether or not I was there, because it closed down 3 months after I got in, and I was 17, but I had fake ID from a Montreal woman, and they knew I was young, but they let me in twice, and it was awesome. It changed my life. I couldn't believe it. The room was packed with women, and it was just a very different vibe, and I didn't trust men. So I ended up back in Calgary. People helped me get back there. I survived long enough with the use of alcohol and other things to numb down the horror I was feeling. And I ended up reconnecting with Denny Sue, who I mentioned earlier, and another woman, Teresa. And that was 1979. There was street wars going on in Calgary. There was like hundreds of hookers on each, prostitutes, and that's how we identified the time, on each block, 2nd, 3rd, 4th Avenue. It was pretty intense. There was an oil boom, and it was ugly. And so we wanted to be independents. I mean, it's something that I've always wanted, I guess. My mom raised us well. We didn't want to be under pimps, and they tried to say, hey, you and Denny could do a show together. And I'd say, yeah, but then the guys have to get in. Yeah, well, I can't be a sex worker. And I tried, but I couldn't. And I would worry that I would snap. He's a survivor. And I didn't. And Denny actually kind of liked that. And the bottom line is we found someone who acted as our pimp. But we weren't doing that. And we tried to claim a space. And we went out for the first night as independents. And short of it is, we didn't last. There was a cab. They came very quickly. I was circled by all these women who were upper track. No one got hurt when we were led into the cars, but I mean, we just got away by the skin of our teeth. And myself and another person even got shot at, which was an experience for me. And we had to go different directions. And I would never see Bunny again after that, and would learn that she died a violent death. And that kind of stuff makes me feel like I gotta be brave. Do you know what I mean? And I've heard a lot of stories that are way worse than mine. So it's always inspired me to be braver. You know, if they can get through that, you know, the Second World War survivor, I can get through this. I hit bottom. Oh man, I had to be a drug dealer because I couldn't be a sex worker and I couldn't be a thief. And those are the three things offered. So I became the drug dealer at the gay bar, and I moved at the time MDA, and I was known as a trusted dealer. And it was little time. I was a teenager. For every 10 I sold, I got one. And I would sell them out fast, get the whole place loaded, and I'd have a bunch, and I'd be able to sell my own for myself and get alcohol. And that's how I did that, get whatever I could get my hands on. It was just all about numbing this horrible pain. I got to a point where someone offered me 9 grams of elephant tranquilizer. So things just went from bad to worse. You know, relationships didn't last. I didn't have the ability to have intimacy. I didn't have the ability to be abusive. And I didn't want to be abused. So it was always leaving abusive women or having expectations on me to be abusive. And so I just didn't do well in these relationships, and I stuck with selling drugs. But someone came up to me and offered me 9 grams of this elephant tranquilizer that Alberta got for the first time because of the big bulls that came from Asia. And it was fentanyl. And I didn't know until this fentanyl crisis that that's what it was, that it was fentanyl. And I did that for 3 months, and I thought I found my drug. So I tried heroin 3 times, smoking it. And each time I did, I felt calm, like I did with my mom. I felt like, I thought this must be what it feels like to be regular. And I never felt that with anything else. And when I did this elephant tranquilizer, you gotta know, I was out for 12 hours. I didn't feel nothing. I couldn't even move for 12 hours. And I thought I found my love drug. So I hit bottom on that. And I would overdose twice. And again, my brother would come and rescue me. I believed I was going to hell, so there I was in the rubber room in the detox. And Vi is still alive. She lives in this community now. And she remembers me going verbal, like all about going to hell and just rambling stuff, violence and going to hell. And one of the times I came to and I could understand her, she said, you know, I'm sure God's okay with you just putting that on the back burner. And I believed her, right? So I did. And no one ever told me that before, and I'm glad. I got clean and sober, and I had to do the clean and sober thing. I'm going to just do a quick list because we're coming at the end here. So AA saved my life. Peers saved my life. Radical feminism saved my life. They helped me understand and to politicize things. Women of color helped me understand that the economic system legislates poverty and creates unnecessary pain and suffering. And I always thought it was our fault. Totally blamed myself. I worked every aspect of the front lines eventually. I would work the front lines like crazy. I felt like I had to give back. And I was lucky. I got hired at a time when you didn't have to go through school and all that, and I worked my way up, and I worked every aspect of the front lines, and I'm grateful that I was able to. I'm an artist. I'm a community builder. I'm a choir person. I'm in Resistance Rising Choir. I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and you really got to look it up. I work really hard, but it's difficult for people to be around us because how we can be so intense and like woo, or just nothing, you know. It comes from our background, and I've healed a lot, and feminist therapy really helped me a lot. Feminist therapy didn't institutionalize me or medicalize me. It empowered me to connect with other people and empowered me to who is your community? Make those people your community. Who are the people in your life? Make them your community. Don't be isolated. Like it saved my life. I totally encourage that we support people like myself who self-medicate and stop judging us like we're just a bunch of we're so helpless, because we're not. Think about everything people have survived. Think about what I've survived. I've only 10 little bits, right? We self-medicated to get through. Western medicine will give me no pain relief that I need when I need it. Pretty much. This is what's happening in BC especially. Other countries it's different, but here, in the US, illicit drugs in the 30s, 50s, whatever, suddenly it was illicit and wrong. People used things to deal with pain in their lives around nations forever. We understood how to work with these medicines. I resist institutionalization. I resist medicalization. I encourage peer support. Peer-led harm reduction. Can you imagine that we don't have a weekly peer-led harm reduction in this town in a neutral space for people to go to? We don't have that in Victoria. Unity is a diversity and solution. I think people have asked me, what helped me? All this diversity I had in my life. And for some reason, Mom raised us to always be open and listen, and people aren't above you or below you. Martin Luther King, as you know, is in my life, and I never heard this quote until I was in my 40s. I realized he did all kinds of research around the union work he was doing. In that research, he said he realized there were more poor white men in America than there were poor black men in America. That it wasn't just a race issue, and he realized that. And a lot of people didn't like that. Think about it, right? Poor whites and black getting together. Look at the mess that's going on in the US right now. And that's coming here if we don't deal with it, because we need to deal with it. We have white supremacy here. And I'm going to end on 2 quotes. Bell Hooks, this helped me a lot, and it took me a long time to understand this, but I loved it when I first heard it. Dominator culture has tried to keep us all afraid, to make us choose safety instead of risk, sameness instead of diversity, moving through that fear and finding out what connects us and reveling in our differences. This is the process that brings us closer, that gives us a world of shared values and a meaningful community. And one other quote, I don't know how much time I have. Okay, good. Eduardo Galeano, who's a Uruguayan journalist. I don't believe in charity. I believe in solidarity. Charity is vertical, so it's humiliating. It goes from top to bottom. Solidarity is horizontal, and it respects the other and learns from the other. Mark already plugged. We have a Vimeo channel called Thaw Advocacy Watch. And on there is a film that I bottom lined with the support of the committee to Analysis Victoria. And it was back in 2009 and 2010 when things were really harsh out there. And somehow people decided to answer the questions about housing. And those answers are still there, and I highly encourage people to go and check it out. Like, some of those folks have passed on now, and they're no longer with us, and their ideas are still with us. And I think I'm gonna just end on that and let the questions begin.
Okay, so we have some volunteers. They're going to come around and collect any of the questions you might have, the anonymous questions. Let's give it one more time. Wow. We have a wireless mic. I'm going to come grab it. Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask?
Any questions?
No. Paper?
Oh, paper. Oh, sorry.
Allison?
I know you have a daughter.
Yes. Yeah, I am a co-parent. My daughter is 16. Her name is Zahira. I'm absolutely proud of her. I co-parent her with her mom Naomi, who gave birth. I transitioned when she was 4, and it was really awesome to be able to raise a child in community. So I often was living like at the Linden House. A lot of people might know about the community house at Linden House. I was really grateful to be in with a bunch of organic farmers. Moss Dance, JD, who was a Unitarian minister. And that's what got my interest in the Unitarian Universalist Church, because of how they have an amazing OWL program, like an education program for youth sex education, and one that's radically feminist, given the stamp. And so we joined the church for that reason. And she also is involved in the Quaker House. And yeah, it's awesome.
Test. Anyone else?
I'm a little bit wordless from the depth with which you shared with us tonight, and I lift my hands to you in deep respect and honor for your willingness to open up to us. You said something, in that pain you put forward some solutions. So when you look at somebody who may be in your current circumstances in 2019, is there any reflections on what you would have offered your younger self in 2019? One of the things you did talk about was the peer-led harm reduction. It was one of them. I'd love for you to go into details. And is there other aspects that you would like to offer to us as the collective here to how do we move forward in a good way?
Thank you. That's a great question. You've heard about tent cities. If that would have been around when I was out there, that would have helped me so much, because people save each other's lives in tent cities all the time. Overdoses don't happen in a tent city. 10 months the tent city happened here in Victoria. There was one death, and it was sad. A young man committed suicide early on in the tent city being established. And even through all the hardship, and even through all the police state and all the stuff that hurt us, people kept doing the best they can to watch each other's back. And we would have young people, young females especially, come and say that they were not going to let the police or the social workers take them out of there. Do you remember it hit the news? We even went and had a meeting with the Ministry of Children and Family. The police tried to say that there was someone in there whose youth is not safe, and then she went to the public and to the minister and said, you know, you all ignored me for years. I've been out here for years. You ignored me, and now I'm safe because no, I can't get raped there. No one can attack me there because I can yell out for help. And you're saying I can't stay here? So she really, and that really would have helped me. The peer support and peer-led and peer-run meetings, like, thank you. Like, AA helped me so much. Like, I was spinning, man. my friend Maya and I, she was hyper. She was a sex trade worker, cocaine at the time, addict, and we became very good friends. And we hung out every day, and we were so hyper. We went to meetings every day at lunch, every day in the evening. Every afternoon we went to ADAC. Every morning we went to ADAC. Like, I mean, we were hyper, and we were still hyper. And it helped because we could hear from other peers, you know. And going to AA meant that it was all us. It was all people who were sober and trying to be clean and sober. Yeah, that would be what I'd say. And decriminalization. Like, people keep talking about legalization. It's just not doing it. It's hurting us, just so you know. That's another story, but decriminalization, the Portugal model, is awesome. And now there's another country going to go in those footsteps. Safe supply, people's health gets better, the general community health gets better, you know. So yeah, decriminalization.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kym. That was awesome. I've known you for a long time, and I haven't heard some of those stories, so thank you for sharing. You've talked a lot in the past as well about how important that those early feminist communities were for you. And I think, you know, when I first came to Victoria, there was every woman's books that, you know, women could go to and find those spaces. I mean, I guess maybe peers to some extent today, but are there other spaces that you can think of where where marginalized people, women-friendly people can find those spaces?
And can people in the audience also help with that? Because I think I could probably get some help from like you, Vic. Isn't there, or Hillary, do you know of other spaces for women and folks here in Victoria? I I really missed Everyone's books. I can't think of, or Sarah, is there any, I can't think of a place right now that's like, and this is the thing that we've got to really look at. It's like, in the 80s, women of color did this radical anti-oppression 101. I was able to go through the training, it blew my mind. It just helped make sense of everything. And I had to work hard, I had dictionaries, I had to take notes, I had to work hard because there was a lot of academic language being spoken, and I was grade 9. But I got a lot of help from a lot of these women of color. They were South Asian women, Jewish women who were radical feminists, and other radical dykes who were also feminists at the time, and they were a community in Calgary. And it seemed to me that for the next 40 years after the anti-oppression went out there and helped educate community about how to communicate and how to resolve conflicts, how to have equity, that the governments would then, liberals, conservatives, cut. The women's bookstores all went, the publishing places all went, most of them anyways. A lot of women's centers got cut. And then unions who helped build the social housing, feminists helped build that co-op and social housing, then they all got cut. Unions have been cut. So it's like, it feels like we're now in the final front line, which is the environmental movement led by Indigenous, which is awesome. And they're asking us, the Indigenous leadership has asked me, like when we were up at Burning Mountain, Sater George asked us, we appreciate that you are here defending our right to the land and stuff. What's your connection to the land? Do you have a story? And we all had stories because we love the land. That's why we're in this environmental movement. And we love the idea of decolonization and Indigenous sovereignty. So yeah, I got sidetracked there, but I think I might have answered that there.
Thank you.
I'll just mention ADI, the Anti-Violence Project.
Yeah, the Anti-Violence Project, yeah. And it's like, what's happening is that it's like there's cycles, there's service providers, and so AVI, 8th Vancouver Island, is an amazing space for people. It's an amazing space. They have great peer-led stuff there. And you have to be under their umbrella, which makes sense. They used to have a dinner there at AVI, the Tuesday night dinner. Remember Carol and I, and all the users from past, present, illicit drug users were able to go. But VHOG cut the heck out of it. So only current people who are members of AVI, so you have to have these diagnoses, which, it makes sense. They need the support. But it's sad too, because when we were divided. So nothing replaced that. And that's why I really highly encourage any support with us trying to find, we have different people trying to help the Lived Experience Homelessness Network find a space that's suitable in the territory where the homeless are, that is like a room of our own to have meetings. When we were having them, it was awesome. And we just never can get our foot on the ground. City space was too far away. And that's too far away for the people who are on Johnson. And sadly, the service provider, like Portland Hotel Society at 844 Johnson, I know people in there who never leave there for 2-3 months, right? And they go from there to our place, back and forth for months, because it's institutionalization, it's not cool. So really help us support that in any way you can. Come and talk to me later, that'd be great.
Thank you. I'm going to ask a basic question just because, there's a general public here. And the question is, as someone who hasn't engaged much in homelessness and is walking around on a day-to-day, what are some things that you can do as a community member to help support people?
Look people in the eye, slow down, say hello, try to be aware of your own discomfort, It's about building relationships. Everyone who's homeless has skills, and there are some who have a harder time than others. And that's why Tent City was also so amazing, because for the first time in 20 years, I was able to go into people's homes and visit them with their community around, because they're so criminalized. If they're doing illicit drugs, for 20 years it'd be like minutes of, hey Renee, how's it going? Fast, gotta go, boom. 20 years of that. And suddenly we're at Tent City, we're standing around. It was the weirdest thing. And we were hanging in their living rooms. It was the most powerful thing, and something very empowering about that, to be able to be where they are and respect them and support them around the police state. I highly recommend, we have a police state that is pushing itself more and more into saying they want to fix this homeless problem. Well, we know that they have a job and it's decriminalized. We used to have outreach people. I used to do outreach for peers, and it was awesome. Can you imagine having more outreach, being able to reach people who are homeless, who are using drugs? Wouldn't that be awesome? But no, VHOC cut a lot of this outreach and replace it with police begging for more money. So I'm here saying we need to have a boundary. So, the police had their gaze on me all my life, and my mom taught us, don't be scared of them, you look them in the eye, you have nothing to hide. And be careful though, because you have to be careful. We were taught that. And it's really interesting that now I got the camera and I'm filming the police whenever they're interacting with the homeless. And it's like, it's empowering, and those who are homeless actually appreciate that. So if you want to join Thought Victoria, it would be awesome to have more people who can come out there and meet people and help, just be around with your cameras, and whenever the police are interacting, just start filming them, the police. And I don't put out I keep private the homeless people's faces. You'll notice, when you see the homeless people's faces on YouTube there, it's because they've agreed to it. Otherwise, you won't see their faces, so just to keep that in mind.
Thank you. Okay, we have time for one more question. So I'm going to open it for one more comment or question, if anyone would like to say something.
I have a question.
All right.
How many people have ever been homeless who are in this room? Awesome. You all have stories of bravery. And I think probably all of you also have some kind of story of bravery that happened in your lives, so I can't wait to hear about that.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Kym. I think we'll stop the question period there. Do people feel like taking a big breath in? Very nice. Great. Well, now we've budgeted some time for yourself as a collective and your respective groups to just sit down and talk to each other. So the neighbors that are around you, we have like 10 to 15 minutes where you can just go around in a circle, maybe talk a bit about how what you just heard related to you in your life. We're going to be introducing a creative component called the story boxes that you see over there, but I will let you know when the time is right for that. So I'm just going to open it for some general discussion, and you will be hearing from me in 10 to 15 minutes. So enjoy.
And maybe split up if you need. Some of the tables are big, some of the tables are small. If you want to share each other around, if you want.
Thanks, Kym. Thanks. So go ahead. Our actions matter. Like, the reason we're running this event, like why I was like, oh, I want to run a public event where anyone can come, where people with privilege and access to political power can come interact with people from marginalized communities, is because our beliefs matter. Our beliefs, the way that we talk to people, if you can take this home and talk to your peers. I just wrote a grant called the Systems Change Grant, and in that grant I had to do some research, as I do sometimes. And we looked at, one of the key pieces of data we used was with harm reduction sites, and there's a direct correlation between the public attitude towards harm reduction in a certain area and that solution being adopted. So if what Kym said he resonated about having peer-supported areas to help people, speak to people, and change beliefs, that's a small thing you can do. You don't even need to interact with anyone that you're uncomfortable with. It's just like, talk to your buddies, you know what I mean? So yeah, that matters, like, let's treat each other with compassion. Let's embrace the stories of other people before we make judgments. Yeah, that's really all I got. You know what I mean? So thank you very much for being here. I gotta throw some thank yous up before we head out. What's up, Alan?
If people want to help you doing this work,
Oh yeah.
they support you financially.
Nice, Adi.
Yes, I forget. I will get to that in just one hot second about following up with the EP, but first I want to give some thank yous out. So we have sponsors for this event that help make it possible. So the first is Frontrunners, and we have Rob Reed back over there. He's been the biggest supporter of the project. We also, Van City Credit Union came through. Elena Cortez here, who's a representative. So Van City they have an ID program where they help people that have lost their ID recover that. So they're one of the most proactive credit union, or I think places you can put your money. So they're here supporting this event, which is awesome. The last one we have is Viatech. So Viatech's from the tech community. Let's give it up for Viatech. Real quick. That was promoting human connection, so that's great. Yeah, well, we're meant to get back to the last questions after this. Quick things, we have Aiden Henry from Brink Events here who's helped with the project as well. He's right there. Thank you, Aiden. Miss St. Idris in the back filming from Technology for Change made the promo video. Our girl, Mira Matthews, holding it down. Where is she? There, I did. Adam Parkinson in the back has done all our website stuff. I just want to give him a shout out. Ali Khan right here, my brother, was one of the, essentially co-founders of the project and helped develop the storytelling workshop with me for the past 2 years. So that's a man right there. Jillian Staples, where's Jill? There she is. That's our photographer. So if you see our photos downtown, that's Jill. All the volunteers that helped tonight, Rachel, Tony, Mark, and Christine. Got the name, sorry, I think it's supposed to be right. Give it up, give it up. Thank you very much. So if you want to stay in touch with the project, we make podcasts, we run community events that you can participate in, we work with schools, we're starting to work with businesses. If your business or organization wants to do like a more intimate work version of this kind of a workshop, if you're interested in incorporating the story of someone into your operations, that's something that we do. We work with a wide range of storytellers. So there's more information on that on our website, or you can get in touch with me. And lastly, thank you for bearing with me very, very much. We've also prepared an art gallery back there that's like completely equipped with food. And I know maybe people are tired, maybe they're not, but the guy asked me to carry all the food back, so I don't know how to do that if people don't eat it. So I really appreciate it if you just at least have some food. Jill's going to be back there taking photos. We're going to be doing the gallery that you might see on the wall here. We always do that. We try to chronicle some of the reflections people have made. So if you want, just go back there, and then we have some sticky tack. You can put it on the wall, and we'll have a nice big collage of all of our story boxes at the end. And then if you finish the circuit, you'll see the art gallery, which is just reflections from our workshops. And we have artists in the room that also attend the workshops that we do, and they create art after they go through a process. So check it out. Thank you so much. Please share this with your friends.